ES Audio.
From the Evening Standard in London, I'm Mark Blunden, and this is The Leader.
This train is now ready to Byford.
It was a huge day for improving the ease of travelling through London as the first passenger section of the Elizabeth line, aka Crossrail, opened for business. While it wasn't all plain railing, a fire alert sparked the evacuation of Paddington station briefly. There were plenty of enthusiasts from London and beyond eager to try out the £20 billion line. And also, what about those future ticket fares? By 10 a.m, 130,000 journeys had happened, and the Standard was there from the very early start. You'll hear some expert analysis, the thoughts of passengers travelling on the Purple Line for the first time on the newly opened stretch from Paddington to Abbey Wood, and make sure you stay tuned until the end to hear Mayor Sadiq Khan discuss the project's handover from City Hall's previous incumbent, Boris Johnson. It's here, yes, after decades of planning, years of tunnelling, planning inquiries and quite a few residents' complaints about the disruption, Crossrail, aka the Elizabeth line, has opened. It's 5:30 a.m. and I'm here outside Paddington station with assembled media and plenty of railway enthusiasts to catch the first trip on the Purple Line over to Farringdon station.
I got here for 3 o'clock in the morning, nice and sharp and early. The attraction of coming here today is to ride the new line and to fully experience what it feels like. I came here to experience how fast I will get from point A to point B and etc.
I had a couple of interrail days left, and then TfL announced that they would open Crossrail, and I thought that's just the best thing to do, visiting London and riding the first train.
So the doors are opened. I would estimate a good couple of hundred people who headed through down the escalators onto the concourse of the Elizabeth line, headed down with the first tranche of passengers who are all touching their contactless cards into the gates as per normal on a TfL journey. And I think hopefully we'll hear a little bit more from Mayor Sadiq Khan later regarding those fares.
Your Elizabeth line service to Abbey Wood via Canary Wharf.
The train now approaching platform A is the Elizabeth line service, the announcer said.
Please move right down the platform, move right down the train. This train is 9 cars long, please move right down the platform. I know we all want to be at the front, but please move right down the platform.
Train's ready to depart, and we're off. Certainly feels more spacious than your average Jubilee or Central Line train. It's a pretty wide carriage. The ride's pretty smooth, but there is a small wobble, and as you'd expect with such new rolling stock, it is incredibly clean. The assembled media has alighted the train with Mayor Sadiq Khan, TfL boss Andy Byford. Ross Lydall, City Hall editor for the Evening Standard. Ross, it's a big day for Transport for London, for the Mayor. There's certainly been a lot of policy challenges getting this off the ground. What do you think this will mean for the Mayor politically now to finally have this open?
Well, we actually saw it. As soon as the train set off, Sadiq let out this huge sigh of relief. I think he'll be very relieved essentially to get this off his desk, out of his in-tray, and it's one problem that is now solved. It's taken a long time. It's taken really since 2018 until now, so it's taken 4 years to solve this problem. If we think back to 2016 when Sadiq came to power, he thought he would be opening this line in December 2018. It was only in the summer of 2018, about 3 months before that was due to happen, that he actually realised what a mess it was in. And it's been an almighty headache. It's been something that he was able to largely pass to the side when he cleverly recruited Andy Byford as a TfL commissioner a couple of years ago, and Andy Byford really drove this forward with Mark Wilde, the Crossrail chief executive. But Sadiq now is happy as Larry today. He's got a huge smile on his face, he's laughing and joking, but deep down he will be so relieved that this is out of the way, and also that money will start to come into TfL's coffers from this line. We should end up with hundreds of thousands of pounds every day now in Crossrail fares.
Here we are with Transport for London Commissioner Andy Byford. So, Mr. Byford, what is the significance of today? It's not the whole line has been opening. We've got a little bit, but people are going to be able to travel as they would on the other lines.
Well, quite simply, this is the most historic day in TfL history for a generation. We've opened up the next phase of the transformative Elizabeth line. So this is a real big deal. Listen to the reaction of our customers. This opens up these spectacular new stations, unprecedented journey times, beautiful surroundings, whisking people from Abbey Wood through to Paddington. This is, of course, a deliberate strategy on our part to open in phases. The next phase, coming soon, will be in the autumn when we get Bond Street open, concurrent with having trains come in from the east, from Shenfield all the way through to Paddington, and from Heathrow and Reading all the way through to Abbey Wood.
The tunnelling aspect of things, getting all this huge bore, squeezing it under central London, what were some of the logistical challenges, and where, I guess, would be some of the pinch points where you're trying to squeeze in this tunnel where the existing infrastructure already sits?
Tunnelling is a difficult task in any environment, but doing it under central London is exponentially more difficult. You've got all the buried utilities, you've got BT cables, you've got gas, you've got water, you've got sewage, but in London you've also got the ever-present risk of finding unexploded World War II ordnance. You've got Roman mosaics. You've got to go round skyscrapers. So one of the particular challenges we found here was at Tottenham Court Road. You'll notice the platform is slightly curved. Why is that? It's because we went round the foundations of Centrepoint. So this has been a huge logistical challenge. I think it's an engineering triumph, and my hat goes off to the engineers on this job. What a fantastic achievement.
When you started your role 2 years ago, what was the handover like? What sort of state was the project in? What was kind of the biggest, most pressing issue?
Well, we had a number of things that needed to be expedited. First of all, the stations needed to be finished. There was quite a lot of work still to do on the stations. One of the first things I did was bring in a gentleman from America, an absolute world-class expert on finishing stations, a guy I worked with in Toronto. I knew he was the man to get the stations finished and across the line. But then working with Mark Wilde and the team, we have powered through what remained to be done. Trial running, trial operations, reliability running, getting the safety case all sorted, getting the assurance paperwork done. Credit to the team. It's their success today. I'm merely the figurehead. I'm really proud of Mark Wilde and the team. We got it done.
Fares. Are you able to make any kind of commitments over the years ahead in terms of keeping the fares low? Any kind of fare freeze?
Well, the fares policy is a matter for the board. What I can say today is that the fares are the normal fares that you would pay. You can use your Oyster card within the central section and up to West Drayton. You can use pay as you go. So I think this will be really good value for Londoners. They'll love the fact that just a regular fare applies on the Elizabeth line. For the future, that's a matter for the board.
We'll go to some ads now. Stay here for analysis from the Independent's transport correspondent Simon Calder, our interview with the Mayor, and some very tuneful transport workers. Why not hit rate and follow in the meantime? What's that we can hear? There's some music. And I understand this is actually a TfL choir. They sound very tuneful indeed. Let's take a closer listen. And after that musical interlude, we're off for the second portion of this journey from Farringdon Station. How would you rate the quality of the ride and the passenger experience?
It's very smooth, there's a lot more space, and you're not deafened like you are on the Jubilee line, which is really noisy.
Now arrived at Woolwich Station, which in comparison to Farringdon, it's sort of different but the same. More of those enclosed platforms with the glass safety barriers in front. But instead of illuminated panels above the doors, there is wall upon wall of black grills, and in the middle of the platform we've got these very large columns, concrete at the top, brown underneath. Thoughts so far on the sort of design and the aesthetic?
It's really nice, very nice indeed.
How would you describe it?
It's quite modern, sort of, I think that's the main feel of it, modern, airy, clean, which is nice for now.
Have you sort of done any checks in terms of the journey times? Have you got any hopes that is it going to make it any faster for you?
Yeah, certainly. It's about 14 minutes, whereas my usual journey, well, door to door takes me about an hour to get from Welling to Farringdon, so this should make that half the time, I think. So looking forward to that.
Simon Calder, travel correspondent for The Independent, and you've presumably been covering Crossrail, the ups and the downs for many years. What do you think this will mean for the powers that be to finally get this off the ground? Probably a sense of relief. What do you think is the significance of today, getting it all done in time for the Jubilee?
Well, it's certainly getting it done before the Jubilee, but it also depends. It's a bit like Brexit, isn't it? Getting Elizabeth Line done, getting Crossrail done. Obviously, it's nowhere near done. What we're seeing is a partial opening today. Yes, absolutely, the crucial part from Paddington Station through to Abbey Wood, and that is going to make a great deal of difference for people who live in South East London. But if you want to go from Shenfield in Essex to Heathrow Airport, you're going to have to change twice along the way. Oh, and you're not able to use it on a Sunday apart from the Jubilee weekend, so that's going to be an interesting decision anyway. Bond Street Station not open, so yeah, it's sort of opening, I suppose, but well, I just hope that a year from now, when finally the whole thing's open, we do, as they say in politics quite a lot these days, move on, and that the rest of the country will forgive us for such an appallingly botched, over time, over budget project.
What do you think there'll be some of the pressures in terms of fares on transport for London now? Because obviously they're billing this as cheaper than the Heathrow Express, but is this going to be achievable over time, do you think?
Oh, look, the Transport for London finances are a complete disaster anyway due to COVID. So one really critical fact is that for the past 3.5 years, they haven't been getting any money from the Elizabeth line, on which all their projections, all their forecasts were based. I imagine that we will see fares rise over time faster even than inflation.
What was that handover like in 2016? What sort of state were things?
There was no handover from the previous mayor to me, but actually the previous company, Crossrail Limited, were completely autonomous. We weren't allowed to interfere with the previous company, as indeed nor with the DfT. Both the DfT and TfL were told to keep away from the project. The first time we discovered there was problems was in August 2018. Neither DfT or TfL knew about those delays. We were kept in the dark. The NAO, the PAC have confirmed that, and there have been various reviews and inquiries, and that's one of the lessons we've got to learn. You can't have a hands-off situation. You've got to make sure you learn the lessons from this, and one of those lessons is don't have ad hoc major projects. Keep the institutional knowledge you have. Make sure there's accountability. The signalling is the most complex of any major line across the world. We've got to learn from that, but also we've got to learn that we can have major complex projects in our country. We should be incredibly proud of the ingenuity of this project, but learn the lessons as well.
And finally, just on fares, are you able to make any commitments for the remainder of your second term on keeping fares low for Londoners on this line?
Well, my message to the government is don't micromanage TfL. Give us a long-term capital deal, but allow us to decide what the fares are, what the investment are. The government has imposed an RPI plus 1 increase on commuters in London. Londoners will know for the first 5 years of my mayoralty, we froze fares. That brought in additional commuters to public transport. The best way to encourage people to use public transport is to invest in public transport, but to keep fares low. The government should be learning from us rather than micromanaging TfL.
With the cost of living crisis, can we expect a hike in the years to come?
Well, if the government wants to learn from TfL, the best thing they can learn from us is to allow us to be in charge of TfL rather than them.
There's more on this story in the Evening Standard newspaper and online at standard.co.uk. That's The Leader. We're back on Wednesday at 4 p.m.